Today on This Week in Startups, Otis Chandler, the founder of Goodreads.com, is on the program. And we'll take your questions in another segment of Ask Jason. All that and more right now on This Week in Startups.
That's what it's all about, man. They said money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah. Money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.
Okay, everybody, welcome to episode 103. I can't believe it. 4 days till Christmas. I'm running around like crazy trying to get all my shopping done. It's nuts, and boy, we just do a nice, tight show today. With me is Otis Chandler of Goodreads, the social network for books and readers. This company I found out about a couple of years ago, and they've done fantastic. And a very sort of niche vertical social network that's actually done really well for itself, and we're going to hear about that in a minute. But first, I want to tell you about SendGrid. SendGrid is the industry leader in delivering transactional emails. And of course, you know what transactional emails are. Those are messages that are automatically generated by your system. Things that are sent when a user does an action, like password registration confirmation, password reset notification, purchase receipts, shipping notifications for all that holiday shopping, friend and follower requests for all social networks. Their clients include Foursquare, you may have heard of them, FormSpring, another huge site, Hootsuite, huge, SideShare, huge. And they're hiring right now, and that's a big reason why they're sponsoring This Week in Startups. They need people because they're growing like wildfire over there. Web application engineers, back-end engineers, and sales and marketing, of course. If you're in one of those dead-end sales jobs or marketing jobs at some local shop, just get over to SendGrid, and you are going to make much bigger commissions, I'm absolutely certain. Twist viewers sign up with the coupon code IWatchTwist, and will get 3 months of the basic plan for free. And if you already have an account, you get the 3 months for free as well. Thank you to SendGrid for sponsoring This Week in Startups and making independent media like this possible. We've got 6-7 people now. We've got makeup, HD, lights, cameras. You guys are all very demanding. The users all want perfect audio. You all want perfect lighting. Well, hey, this is... we need to have people step up and help us do this, and SendGrid is one of those people, so it is your Gary to thank them. Thank them on Twitter, on your Facebook. Just say thank you at SendGrid, and tell them your Uncle Jason sent them. Otis Chandler, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Jason.
Local Los Angeles entrepreneur.
Yes, sir.
And you founded Goodreads in what year?
I built it in 2006 and launched it right at the end of the year. So we just hit our 4th year anniversary since the site launched. And
what was your original goal for the site? What made you want to build a social network for books? Because at the time, hey, MySpace was going really well. Facebook had just opened up, and everybody's like, hey, there's going to be no vertical social networks. They're just all going to be groups inside of these other things. Anybody trying to make a social network viable, it's not going to work. And so people didn't think this idea would be viable, frankly. I think a lot of people didn't actually, but it obviously has become viable. What was your goal in setting it up?
Well, 2 things. One is I've been a reader since I was a kid, and I kind of thought books were broken on the internet, right? Yeah. And I the second thing is I have a background in social networking and engineering and building social networks. So I worked at this company called Tickle from 2000 to 2006. And
they were a social network. I remember getting a lot of, I was going to say spam, a lot of emails from Tickle. There was was it a younger person sort of like social network dating site?
Tickle, we had a bunch of products, and so the flagship was Tickle itself, which was personality testing, and that actually skewed very female and actually a little bit older. But so there were fun tests like what kind of dog are you was the most popular, what color are you.
Now it's all back
things
to me.
Designed to kind of tell you about yourself, and then we had the IQ test, which was our money maker, you might say. And if you were online from 2002 to 2004, you would have had to have seen a pop-up or an ad banner for Einstein and take the IQ test, and that was us.
And you worked at that company? You started it, or you owned it, or what was
I was an early engineer, and then I kind of grew up to be a team leader of engineers, and then I was a product manager working under the CEO running our dating service. And so to get back to your question, I actually did believe niche social networks were going to come because I'd seen it in dating. So dating started with Match.com, and you had Yahoo Personal, so you had these big generic things.
Sure.
And then people built a dating site for every niche under the sun.
JDate.
That's a religion. So for every religion, there was a dating site.
Hindu date.
For every ethnicity, there's a dating site. For
Atheism
every sport,
date.
there's a dating site.
Yeah.
For anything
For
you
sports?
can group people. There was a dating site for people who golf. I don't
Really?
know. I don't think it was successful.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, who would want to date a golfer? I mean, they're just
Golfers.
incredibly boring people. No. And so you saw how interactivity and vertical social networks worked, and then you said, hey, I'm passionate about this. I'm going to make the leap to entrepreneurship. And what, you went and raised money, or you just started this company in a very sort of small boutique-y way? What was the start like?
So the start was I moved down here to LA for personal reasons.
Yep.
Let's just say I followed a girl. I'll
What
be
is it?
honest.
That's why I came to LA. I moved across the country. You only
Yeah.
moved a couple of 100 miles. I moved thousands.
A couple hundred miles,
Yeah.
and my family's down here too, so it was a nice move. But I didn't want to get a job, and I had all this knowledge about how to build a social network, right? You know, we built a pretty successful social network in 2004.
Yeah.
We kind of messed up the branding and messed it up after that, and
Was that the mistake? It was just like too scattered and just not focused enough?
we called it Tickle Social Network, and then no one was sure, is Tickle a testing service? Is it a social network?
So a branding issue.
A branding issue.
And also focus, I would suppose.
Yeah.
I mean, if your branding's not clear, that's usually indicative of maybe a leadership issue, or maybe some infighting inside the company, or just disagreement about what we should be doing. Was that the case?
I think it was just strategic.
Yeah.
You saw Yahoo, and they were doing Yahoo Personals, Yahoo Finance, Yahoo this, and you're like, okay, we'll build a brand like that. So we had Tickle Dating, Tickle Social Networking, Tickle Testing, Tickle Photo Sharing. We had a very popular photo sharing service.
That I remember too.
We would copy everything that looks good. We saw
Right.
Match.com, we built a social network with tests. We saw Flickr, we built a social network with photos and tests. And
So you could build fast, but you didn't build in an integrated kind of way, or with a branded vision. What was the issue, you think? Looking back on it now, you get some
I think
distance.
only a big company like a Yahoo can pull off the sub-brands. I think if you're not Yahoo, you shouldn't be doing that. You should have your own name.
Yeah.
And actually, one of our senior engineers took off with that idea and formed Bebo, which was a very successful product. And Michael's an advisor and a friend today.
Yeah. So singular focus,
So
not
he
a bad
did
thing.
he did it right. He took our learnings and did it right.
And you took them, you did it right as well with Goodreads, albeit without the $600, $700 million Bebo exit.
I'm still waiting for AOL to come around with my big offer. But
Well, that was a moment in time. The people who were running, you have to remember, the person who was running AOL at that time didn't use email.
no way, really.
The guy Randy Falco who was running, this is the God's honest truth. The guy Randy Falco who was running AOL, they put him in charge after John Miller. He didn't use email.
Wow, that would make it difficult to understand what a social network is.
It would be like putting a person in charge of the Ford Motor Company who didn't drive cars.
Yeah.
Yeah. The guy who rides, this guy rides horses, but he's going to know how to run that. So you just decide, what? I'm here in LA and I got nothing to do, and I might as well take these learnings and put them to use.
Take these learnings, put it to use. I didn't want to get a job, so I spent 2006 working half-time for Tickle.
Yep.
To pay the bills, and half-time building this idea. And I also wanted to pick up Ruby on Rails, which was then a hot new programming language.
Sure.
Now it's a hot, bigger programming language. So I learned that and built the site, and applied every social networking trick in the book that I knew, which from having done it was best practices at the time. And
find your friends and get them to actually pick their books, and let them know when other people have picked the book. I remember getting all the Goodreads emails in the early days when the network was first being built out.
So I mean, the basic idea was people find good book recommendations through friends.
Absolutely.
And the first thing you do when you walk into somebody's house and there's a bookshelf there is go look at it, right?
Of course.
I do anyway. I think a lot of people do.
Fascinating.
And people put that there not just because it's a good place to put it, but they pick the books on there usually because they're books they like. You keep the books you like, right?
Right. Or
if you read Dan Brown, you might throw it out.
You put it in a box and put it in the attic. It's not like you're reading that book every week. It's not like it's a reference material. Correct.
So these books say something about you.
Sure.
And that's interesting for somebody else to browse. So the whole idea was to do that in a much more efficient, scalable way using social networking and the internet, and really allow people to build these virtual shelves and then browse their friends' virtual shelves. And the basic theory is that recommendations from friends matters more in books than it does in, say, movies or music. Because music, you need a new song every 2.5 minutes. Movies, you can watch a movie a day,
Right.
A movie a week. A book takes you often weeks.
2 weeks, yeah, 3
to
weeks.
finish.
Yeah.
That's not a light investment. You want to make sure you've got a good
so
recommendation.
It's going to be a little bit more considered. You're going to want to make sure you get it right.
Yes. You don't want to waste time with a bad book.
Right. And so what is the main use case here? People basically looking for recommendations? Has some other use come out of it now that people are, that it's at scale?
There's been a lot of uses that have come out and surprised us a little bit. I'd say the core activity is still this building your shelves, browsing people's shelves, finding books to read. We function with a to-read list, which is kind of our version of the Netflix queue. You can keep an ordered queue of like, here are books I found interesting to read, and here's the order I want to read them in.
Right.
And something like 30% of the activity of people adding books is people maintaining and adding books to their to-read list.
Yeah.
So that's popular. But then we've got all kinds of other fun stuff like trivia, book clubs. We have tons of virtual book clubs, people reading books.
How does that work, the virtual thing work?
So it's basically a group, like a Yahoo group, except it's centered around book discussion. So the moderator can pick, here's a book or two that we're reading every month. I think our most popular book club is the Next Best Book Club is what it's called. They read 2 books a month, and there's something like 8,000 members in it.
Wow.
Of which, some percent are participating every month, depending on the book. But very active discussion, moderated by people who really, are passionate about what they're doing and the books they're picking. And
oh my God! I just thought there's no chance that there's going to be like the genre I'm interested in, which is zombie books. Like,
oh, zombies? No chance.
There's no chance of that. And so I log in. You can pull up my screen here because I'm like, I'm reading this series: Zombie Nation, Zombie Island, Zombie Planet. It's like a 3-part epic series, and I've got 2 of the 3 books done. And
zombies and vampires are hot.
You got a 900+ group book, 900+ people in this group who are into it. And now I bet you I'm going to find some zombie. Yep, there you go. The Zombie Survival Guide. Yep, these are all the big books. So I could actually go here and find books to read and talk about, I guess. Is the concept.
And you could find other people who are interested in the same sort of books and either converse with them or just see what else they've read.
How is this? How is the iPad and the Kindle impacted book reading? Has it made people read more? Has it made people buy more but read the same? What do you think just looking at the statistics, and just your observations as a book expert?
It hasn't impacted us because we're about book discovery and recommendations, and it doesn't matter where you read it.
But just in general, what do you think?
In general, what I hear is that people who have a Kindle read more.
Yeah.
It's more convenient. The book is not days or trips to the bookstore or library away. So you can
impulse
fire it up
buy
right there. The impulse buy.
Yeah.
You might buy a bunch of books and carry them around that you may or may not even read.
Trends in reading? Are people reading less now because of all the other options in video games? Are young people still reading? Is it a crisis? Like I hear people say, "Oh my God, nobody's reading anymore. It's over. Books are dead." And then, but I still see Amazon posting record sales for books, record sales for ebooks. What's the truth here? Are people buying them and not reading them? Are people reading just as much? What does your sense tell you?
The truth is hard to figure out. My sense is I think I read a survey by the National Endowment for the Arts, probably in 2008 or 9, which said that, reading was declining 3% a year, but the population that reads was increasing, growing, because our population is growing, 2.5% a year. So net negative 1.5% a year.
So our population growth is
a lot of
keeping the actual literal number of people reading, the actual hard number.
If you believe this survey.
If you believe the survey.
And my sense is that reading is not declining. There are certainly lots of other mediums, but people who like books generally tend to read books. And even people who don't get a lot of time to read books, when they get time, they get back to it. I think a lot of the doom and gloom you hear about reading is dying is coming out of the publishing industry. Because the publishing industry is definitely got problems. It's a little bit of a shrinking industry. It's an industry under transition. So a lot of the people in it, they've been doing business the way they've been doing for 50 years or more. and it's changing, and it's a little frightening.
How's it changing for them? Is it just the ebooks or people going direct? I heard Seth Godin say he's never going to. He likes his people at his publishing house, but he's never going to use them again because he could just sell direct to his customers. Is that the trend? Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, what does a publishing house get you? So
I don't know actually.
Well, let's go through it.
Yeah.
They can get you an advance, which if you need that, that's helpful. They can get you really quality editing, and that can be very helpful. But you can find those kind of things other ways.
The advances tend to not be that much anyway, especially for first-time authors. It's maybe $10,000.
It's very hard to get unless you've got some sort of traction already.
Yeah.
So the single biggest thing that a publisher still can do for you is they can put your book on the front table of every Barnes & Noble and bookseller across the country. That's still the way to sell books.
They can get you into that prime location because they have that relationship.
They have the distribution relationship.
Right.
But
they can't do that for everybody. I mean, there's more authors than there are front spaces in them.
So there's a big long tail,
yeah,
what's it, hits problem.
Yeah.
It's a hits-driven business.
Right.
And they can't do it for everybody.
But does this mean there's more authorship going on because people are just going their own way? Is that a viable business yet? People, I mean, do you see books coming up that are self-published and being read by a lot of people?
Oh, increasingly.
Yeah, really.
So as the hits-driven business, shrinks, then that means they're taking less and less chances on less and less authors. So the way to kind of publish now, unless you're lucky enough to get a deal right away, is you got to go self-publish, build an audience, and then you take it them and you say, look, I've got an audience. People like this book, and they say, okay, well, now it's proven. We'll try it.
Now that you've got all these book nerds, like in one place, geeking out about books, does that mean you become a way for people to maybe those book publishers to reach out and to market themselves to readers? Do you find authors going in and saying, "Oh, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo is like my book. I'm like this guy. I'm almost." Actually, no, I just finished the film last night. It was really good.
The Swedish one.
The Swedish one I just finished. Really good film. Although you saw it, it's really disturbing.
It's a kind of disturbing subject matter of the book.
Yeah, it's just like.
But it was well done, so I'm confused why they're making an American version now.
Yeah, I can't imagine what the American version would add to what is a perfect film. It seems, it's like a dark.
I'm as confounded as you.
I highly recommend everybody go see this film, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, because it's like a Law and Order episode mixed with like a Hitchcock film. Like it's got a great detective story with like disturbing imagery and like it's almost like Requiem for a Dream plus Law and Order or something, like just disturbing and awesome. Did you read the book by chance or no?
Of course, I read the whole series. Yeah.
It's a whole series now.
It's a whole series. They're thrillers. They go really quick. They're gripping. I hadn't read a good thriller in a long time, so I enjoyed that.
I used to read every Michael Crichton book because I used to be on planes. Whatever I'm on a plane, I would just whip through those before there was internet. That's so sad that he died. I mean, I used to love that stuff and whip through it. But maybe this could be a good substitute. So. Are people going in and saying, I am like this author and trying to get, drum up business inside of a social network like Goodreads, or would that be like...
No, that's our business.
Yeah.
So, on the one hand, we're a place for readers, a community for readers, a tool for readers to find books, a book discovery engine, if you will.
Right.
And on the other half, we're increasingly become a marketing platform for authors and publishers. Right. So because we know what readers read, because they put that into their profile, we can offer really intriguing targeting to a new author who's coming out with a sci-fi book, and we can say, okay, we're going to target you to everybody who's read Orson Scott Card, and et cetera, et cetera.
Ender's Game.
Ender's Game, right.
Yeah.
One of my favorites.
How does that exactly work? You email those folks, or you just target on the site and just have a little thing recommended for you?
So there's a couple ways. If you're one of the big 6 publishers that we work with all the time, or a mid-major publisher, we're working with them to sell book launch packages, and we'll do run-of-site advertising targeted to whatever genre or books that they want. So they've got a thriller, they want to reach James Patterson and Dean Koontz readers or something like that. We'll do that, and then we'll throw in newsletter sponsorship. So we have a newsletter that goes to like 4 million people. Wow! And that's our only editorial piece on the site. The rest of the site is user-generated, algorithmic. But our newsletter, we put together some impressive author interviews and stuff like that, so there's sponsorship there. Right. And then we'll throw in iPhone app advertising and Facebook app advertising, and all kinds of good stuff.
And they get...
And we'll also do a free giveaway. The giveaways are...
I see that here
huge
on the site. So if you give these away, anybody who's a member of the site gets to have one, or you have to... Oh, you enter to win, I see.
So have you ever gotten a free book in the mail being a journalist?
I get too many.
Right, so these are all publishers hoping you're going to review it.
Ah.
And they do that because they want to drum up advance buzz before the release of the book, right?
Got it.
They want people to have been out there saying positive things about it.
So they assume your people are more socially active, more social media active, more blogging kind of a thing, or?
Yeah, they want to seed Goodreads with positive reviews or reviews of the book. Hopefully they're positive. They can't control that.
Sure, of course.
So what we let them do is they can list a giveaway, and they can list 10 books, or 5 books, or 1 book, or some
or 2
coming
copies
with 100
available right
books.
here, and I can enter to win. Yep.
And you can enter to win, and we do a random raffle at the end. We try to match users with who's going to like it, but there's a big element of randomness. And then the publisher ships these people the books. So it's an easy way to win free books, and it's an easy way for people to kind of see what's coming out, what's interesting. And it's the best promotional tool we have for authors and publishers, and it's totally free. Huh. We get on average like 800 people entering one of these giveaways.
It's amazing. Like here, the girl with the glass feet, everything's going to be, is every title going to be the girl with something?
For a while.
This girl's got the glass feet, the other one's got the dragon tattoo, and the other one kicked the hornet's nest. And, and she's a Goodreads author. So what does that mean? She's a participant in the site?
So we let you claim your author profile if you're an author on Goodreads, and 16,000 authors have done so.
Really?
And they're on there promoting their books, gathering fans, posting events, talking to their readers. We're very much focused on this. Let's help authors promote, connect to this massive amount of readers we've built.
How has the sort of global nature of the internet and media changed the book business and the sort of reading? Because it seems like this girl series, that's from Sweden. And so these have all been translated, but now they're the biggest books here in the United States. I mean, when's the last time that happened?
I can't think of it. Well,
right? I mean, I'm not the biggest expert in the world.
Do you mean translated or comes from another country?
Coming from another country. I mean, obviously things get translated.
You got Harry Potter. That's not from here.
That's true, but I'm just trying to think of non-English authors that become phenomenons in English and in America specifically. Not too often.
Not too often.
Yeah, I mean, does this say something about the sort of global audience and the, internet, or is it just happen to be that this guy writes kick-ass books?
I don't know if I'm qualified to say that. I think the guy just wrote a really good thriller, and it was translated well, and it actually wasn't even written that well. It was kind of...
Yeah.
He died before he was published, right?
Oh, really?
You knew that.
I didn't know that.
They were published post-mortem, and no one really edited them up really well, because I guess they didn't want to. So it reads really fast, and it's a very well-done story, but it could have used some polishing, in my opinion.
A little fit and polish around the edges, but great story gets you pretty far. I'm actually... because I'm a writer of more, newsletters and business writing and whatever. But
I get your newsletters.
Thank you for subscribing. But now I've been listening to Stephen King on writing.
Oh, interesting.
Have you listened to this book? It's like sort of like a memoir and whatever.
No.
I'm halfway, 2/3 of the way through the audiobook maybe. I do audiobooks because at the end of the day I'm so tired. From working so hard and looking at a screen and whatever, reading so much and writing so much. Sometimes I close my eyes and lay on the couch and just listen for an hour, or I'm driving or whatever, playing poker. You
listen to an audiobook while you play poker?
Yeah.
That's weird.
There's a lot of boring moments in poker, especially when you're in one of these big tournaments where like...
Oh, okay. Yeah. I was picturing you with a bunch of your friends having beers and
No, I'm talking about in tournaments with people who are just the dregs of humanity, total degenerates who I would absolutely not want to have a conversation with. It's just much easier to put in some headphones. And then sometimes I put the headphones in because I just want them talking to me because they're such degenerates and the conversation is going to go nowhere. But yeah, really got me jazzed up about writing and reading more. And so what's the footprint of the business? Did you ever raise venture capital? Is this intended to be some extremely large business, or is this like, a boutique lifestyle business for you? Like, where's it at in terms of the spectrum of, venture cap businesses and, No,
we're thinking big.
Yeah.
We are basically aiming to be the place you go to find books and discuss books. Amazon can be the place to sell books.
Yeah.
We're not going for that. We want to be the best book discovery engine, the Yelp for books, if you will, the IMDb for books.
Yeah.
We have raised a Series A from True Ventures, who are in San Francisco.
Great, yeah.
Of $2 million.
Tony Conrad?
John Callahan is on the board, but I know Tony too.
Yeah, great VC firm.
Yeah, and we had done a seed round in 2007 with a bunch of solid people.
Oh, really? Who? Anybody we know?
The Tickle guys, who are my mentors,
Awesome.
Stan Chudnovsky and James Courier, and Mike Jones, who you probably know here in LA.
He's great.
And Gil Elbaz, who you might know in LA
sure.
too.
Another great LA entrepreneur.
Michael Birch from Bebo.
Oh, wow.
Who knows social networking just
These
a little bit.
These are all great A-listers.
Chris Michael, who did Affinity Labs and Military.com, both of which amazingly sold to Monster.com.
Oh, wow.
So great group of advisors. And True Ventures actually came in at the end of that round. Too, just a little bit.
So it is a venture-backed business, which means you're swinging for the fences, or this has got to become a larger business. How big is the business today? I mean, you have 4 or 5 million people have signed up for it and are on the email newsletter. Mm-hmm. How many monthly uniques, and and how do you measure success on this? I mean, is it for the avant-garde, or do you want a much larger group of people there?
No, we're still looking to grow a lot, and still refining the product every day to figure out what adds value, what do book readers need.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, I think we do 7 million monthly uniques and 55 million monthly page views.
Oh, wow. That's really significant.
It's solid. It's solid. As you can tell the difference between those numbers, we get a very engaged audience.
Yeah, 7, 8 page views per unique is pretty amazing. I mean, and it's a social network, so that makes sense, but it's not like it's a social network for everything in your life. This is for a very tight, narrow vertical inside of your life. In some ways, very related to Flickster, I guess. People would compare you guys. They're the social network.
They're absolutely a sister company.
Yeah.
I speak with Joe all the time, trying to get. They're basically a year ahead of us in terms of like product and when they started, and I'm always looking to them for ideas.
Yeah.
Although they've really moved on, they're not really doing Flickster so much.
Now they have Rotten Tomatoes. They acquired.
They're on Rotten Tomatoes now.
And Rotten Tomatoes may be a little bit bigger than their social network, I guess.
They're actually about the same
About
size.
the same?
Yeah.
Rotten Tomato doing sort of the meta critique.
But Rotten Tomatoes is a little higher quality site.
Yeah.
More cred in the industry.
Well, it's been around for over a decade, so it makes sense. And so what about the act of reading and actually inside of the books? Now that we have people reading, on e-readers, they know what page you're on and all this kind of stuff. Is there any thought to, like, I'm going to, and I don't see this inside the readers themselves, but it would seem to me that you'd be able to pretty easily in an e-reader be able to share the experience of reading it on a page-by-page basis. And a chapter-by-chapter basis, and discuss it and annotate it that way. Is anybody providing those kind of services or ideas? I mean, does your service provide that, the ability to annotate on pages? And
We do. We're very interested in that stuff.
Yeah.
So we've published a full API which lets anybody kind of build the Goodreads experience into anywhere else. And we're working on building our own iPhone app e-reader, which we've got, but it can only read 2,000 public domain books so far. And that was built mostly as proof of concept to show you what social can look like inside of an e-reader.
Yeah.
But any e-reader is free and willing to use kind of our data to power reviews inside of an e-reader and to power kind of social inside the book, actually. So there's 2 approaches there. One is that we've got this fun feature where people can actually microblog, what page they're on, what percent they're on, and a note. It was kind of our answer to like Twitter's and Facebook's what's happening.
Right.
Or I forget what the question they even ask anymore is. It changed so much, but I think it's what's happening.
I think it's what's happening. Yeah.
So we say, what page are you on?
Yeah.
And we get 9,000 of those a day. 80% of which are just people sharing I'm on page 45. I'm 34% done.
What percentage of those do people reply back and say, like, that's a great page, or is it sort of just like a poke kind of feature, like I'm here world and I exist?
A little of it's just people, wanting to have the bar in their profile go up as they read. A little of it's people might be reading together in a book club. They can all see their progresses.
What's happening, by the way, is the Twitter.
Yeah.
What's happening?
What's happening, okay.
Yeah. With no J, just what's happening with an apostrophe at the end.
We push these things to Twitter and Facebook. So then your Twitter and Facebook friends can see, like, Otis is reading this. And if you, wrote a note or highlighted a quote or something, that would be part of it too.
So they can highlight the actual quote in the book. And so Do they have to type it in? And what about the sort of...
Well, if they're an R-reader, they don't.
Well,
otherwise
that's 100
they do.
books.
And this is the big problem.
Yeah, it's like this, you can't get to the actual source material to comment on it. It would seem to me that commentary is protected under fair use, right? I mean, so literary, especially in a literary
a quote,
setting,
as long as it's short,
yeah,
sentence or two is fair use.
and if I was going to analyze the entire page, it would be fair use as well. I mean, if I wrote a couple of sentences about each paragraph or something. So any thoughts on being aggressive in that way to maybe push the envelope and say, hey, you know, we're going to put this page up here to dissect it and annotate it in that way? Because I've always thought about, I own the domain name Annotate.
Mm-hmm. Oh, do you really?
Yeah, well, I always had this idea for a service, or maybe I own Annotated. Either I own Annotate or Annotated. Annotated, I think I own. And I bought it because I just thought it would be really cool to annotate the New York Times or annotate the Wall Street Journal and put notes there. And the technology wasn't ready for it. But I always had this in the back of my head, like it would be really cool to annotate stuff. Like, and it would seem to me that would be fair use. Like especially in a closed, or a relatively closed social network where people are just, literally commenting on just that page. I mean, Google's got away with putting the whole thing up there.
Yeah, someone's going to do it. And I absolutely love the idea too. I think it'd be really cool to be able to read notes in the margin, both from your friends or other interesting people, if you wanted to turn that on.
Yeah.
But the problem right now is all these e-reading platforms are closed systems. They don't have apps or APIs we can build into. We're working on them to open that kind of thing up, but it's not there yet.
It's basically up to them if they want to pull your data in.
Yeah. So we're working on that too. The Sony Reader just launched a new device a couple days ago, last week I think, and our reviews are featured prominently in their store.
But they decided to pull those in. I mean, you had some discussion and they said, oh, these are great, let's pull them in. But what about if you decided, screw it, I would like to hack these e-readers so that our people can post notes, and when they open up their reader and their copy of the book, which they've paid for and they own, it shows their friends' notes or the whole community's notes.
Yeah,
none of these platforms allow
hacked that yet, but.
And nobody's platform allows you to actually build that kind of plugin yet.
But this is one of the future directions we want to go. This is why we built this API.
Yeah.
Whereas if we can be the social layer across all the devices where that happens, it has to be an independent player who does it.
Right.
Whether it's us or somebody else builds an API and that's how it's done. I honestly don't even care.
Yeah.
I'd rather it be us, of course, but it's going to happen. It needs to happen. People need to be able to share their notes across all these devices where they're reading. Yeah,
and it's a layer anyway, so you should be able to pull it in. So how do you go as a business person with a vested interest in the book space? How do you go to these, two contingents, book publishers who own the rights to the books and these, e-reader, Kindle, and iPads of the world, which are notoriously closed and control freaks, and say, we would like you to consider putting our community's notes on there. I mean, you have some leverage, but I'm assuming Amazon doesn't feel the need to, bend over backwards for you.
No, I don't think they bend over backwards for anybody.
Right. Or even would they return your phone call if you ask them to do some kind of integration like this, or they just tell you no outright?
They speak to us.
Yeah.
They're aware of us.
Yeah.
They bought our closest competitor in 2008, a company called Shelfari. Which they've since run into the ground. So they know the space.
They know the space.
But how do we go about doing that? I'm still figuring that out.
Yeah. It's actually like it's like trying to get peace in the Middle East or something like that, or get these people to actually come to the table. There's no incentive for them to come to the table unless...
Well, they're in the middle of a big dogfight. So, Kindle's got market share leader for sure.
Yeah.
But... They're in a tight race with the Nook, and then there's Sony's been around forever and should not be discounted by any means. And you've got all kinds of new entrants now in Google and Apple, and those aren't to be scoffed at, right? So between all that,
the idea of even addressing this yet, maybe they're not ready for. So it seems to me a Google really did something aggressive by scanning all those books in and saying, we're not going to wait, screw it, if they want to sue us, they can sue us, and they did, and we'll settle. And then you have, on the other hand, Zuckerberg was like, you know what, I'm going to build this stuff anyway, let the chips fall where they may, rack up the lawsuits. Is there a part of you that says, screw it, I'm going to build this technology and we'll figure out how to get it onto these platforms, even if we have to hack them a little bit and jailbreak them, whatever. Now that jailbreaking is not illegal, you're actually allowed to jailbreak, and they're not stopping people from jailbreaking. You could build this tool into a jailbroken iPad and not wait for jobs to get approval. Is that something you're thinking of doing, or?
We're not thinking of doing anything illegal, but we are very crafty with with being smart programmers and getting what we can.
Right.
So.
Because it seems to be jailbreaking now. They sort of feel like it's. I don't think they consider it illegal as much as they just consider like a hobbyist thing. Like, if you want to do it, you can go ahead and do it. So I don't know that they would be too upset if you did it as a proof of concept kind of a thing.
They might not, but they're coming around.
Yeah.
Kindle has a few apps now. They've not opened it. Nook says they're about to open their platform.
Okay. So maybe it's better to wait and not poke the tiger on a business decision level?
Yeah, maybe.
The CEO who poked the tiger? Let's do an Ask Jason. We got the guy on the line here. Okay. We're going to run the intro graphic. Okay, so on the line we have Simon Holmes, who's calling from the +44. And one thing I'd just like to mention before we get to this great Ask Jason call is that .co, don't you know, get a .co. I've got 24 .co's right now, really good ones. And they're going to be on the Super Bowl with GoDaddy in their ad for the first time in history. A domain extension is going to be featured in a Super Bowl ad. And over 600,000 of these .cos have been sold. And that means there's basically a lot of really good ones still available. So get over there, go to .co, and create your own opportunity. O.co went to Overstock, T.co went to Twitter, X.co went to GoDaddy. You may not be able to afford one of those single-letter ones, but there's plenty of them available, and I think they're $30. So they made the price just enough so that the squatters wouldn't come in and buy all of them, but not so much that you can't, afford to get one. And so go in there and get the one you need. I see people, Angel.co went to AngelList, so there's some good ones really available. And .co is the place to get it. These are great domain names available at a great price, and we really thank them for supporting the program. Thank @.co and @SendGrid for helping us put on such a great show. Simon, you're calling from the 44. Does that mean you're in London town?
I'm in London, yeah, London, UK.
Oh, very nice. And so right now it's about 11 p.m. in London, I take it?
Yeah, 11:20. So yeah, you can see the bags coming under my eyes now.
No problem. 11. You're halfway through your day if you're at a startup company.
Exactly.
What's your question for Otis and I?
Okay, well, set the scene. I'm currently full-time employed. I head up the digital department at a design agency here in London. I'm also in the process of bootstrapping a company with a friend of mine. It's called babmap.com. That's BABMAP. I don't want to dwell on it too much. So it's currently just it's not even a 1.0 release, if I'm honest. It's more a 0.75. We've got new design, better information architecture. We're improving features on it, iPhone app, lots of stuff going on. The point is really to make this happen. To paraphrase yourself, Jason, I'm going sort of kung fu on my time. I get up early every day so I can do 2 hours work before I go to my day job. I work 4 out of 5 evenings every week, 1.5 days out of every weekend. My last vacation, I worked 12 hours a day for all but one of the days, and I tend to keep this pace up until I I end up sort of almost making myself ill and crashing and having an enforced break.
Yeah.
So my question to you really is twofold. When you're feverishly sort of trying to get things done, how do you switch off and relax? And how do you stop feeling guilty about any time spent not pushing your dream and ideas forward, especially if, like me, you've got limited windows of time?
Yeah. This is an entrepreneur's curse. You want to get a lot done, and you want to be very focused, and you want to use every ounce of your energy to see your project succeed. That's just natural. Everybody wants to do that. And some people say, oh, just keep in mind it's a marathon, not a sprint. But in reality, there are sprints. And it's what I tell people here at our company. It's a marathon and a sprint. There are going to be sprints within the marathon because we're not just building this company Mahalo or This Week in a bubble. There are other variables like competitors, like the amount of money you have left in the bank, like revenue, et cetera, et cetera. And it's not easy. What I try to do in terms of relaxing is I have a new habit now, especially since I had the kid, of just turning off the phone, the BlackBerry and the devices and getting rid of those, and trying to get out of the house and do something. So going on walks or hikes with the wife and the kids and getting out and seeing friends and having dinner. I mean, that's these kind of things people forget, but going and recharging your battery through a nice meal with friends, breaking bread, having a little wine, getting a good night's sleep, you're going to come back stronger the next day. And I learned this because once you have a kid, you start to realize the inefficient times in your life when you're just, checking email or reading Hacker News or replying to comments, and those things, you wind up going, and you just don't have time for them. And I always wondered about that. Like, I would talk to Fred Wilson or something like that, and I would invite him to a Knick game, and I was like, I don't have time for that. I got to take my kids out or whatever. And so I think efficiency is critical, so that when you do have that time off, you don't feel guilty about it. And what I've found is when I take those breaks, when I come back, my writing, my ideas, product development, marketing ideas, etc., they all come back stronger. So you have to understand the nature of your brain is it needs time to relax and do what's called flow exercises. Flow for you might be playing chess. For me, it might be playing StarCraft. For Otis, it might be running or reading, actually. And so you have to build in some of those exercises. And one thing to do is to get a little timer, like an egg timer. And I've done this with myself before. I actually been doing it on the weekends where I say, I want to get some writing done. So I put it on for 1 hour, or I just set my iPhone for 1 hour. I say, I'm going to write for an hour or so. When it goes off, boom, I go down, I play with London for 2 hours, have lunch, whatever. And then later in the day, I do another 1 hour, and that's it. And I know that I'm going to be focused for that hour, but it's not like this open-ended, like, oh my God, I got the world on my shoulders. And if your idea doesn't start to get traction, well, then maybe you need to switch ideas. And so it's great that you're trying to do this stuff at night and working hard in the morning. But if the idea is not working, you can always iterate. And if you get the idea to any level of success, then you should start going to angels and saying, hey, maybe I can go to halftime with my current job and go to your boss and say, hey, can I be halftime because I have this great idea? Share the idea with them. Maybe they'll want to invest. Otis, what are your thoughts? How do you get out of the grind and
I fully
relax?
agree with you. You got to plan social events that take you away from work, because if I don't have something that my wife and I are going to, I don't leave work unless I'm starving, and that's usually because I miss dinner.
Yep.
But second thing is you got to make sure you have fun. You're gonna burn out on work if you're doing all the nitty gritty, all the boring stuff. So, we do something called Fun Fridays, which is like Google's 20% off time essentially. And any engineer or anybody in the company gets to work on something they just find fun. And everybody looks forward to Fridays, me in particular, because I'm just like, I'm setting aside Friday afternoon. I'm just going to mess around on some feature that doesn't even matter, but it's just something fun.
So something fun related to
what
mission.
you do. Keep your job fun, otherwise you're going to burn out on it.
So that could be, I'm going to play with some e-reader or screw around with some other competitor site or build a game.
Bust out a new
something.
API, build some new stats.
So a little free time.
Whatever it
to
is about your product
creative.
that you like. Yeah.
I think that those things are designed specifically for people to blow off steam, 20% time, retreats, any of that. And that's frankly why I have food here and have Fit Club here and other things, is to try to get people to just get away from their computers for a little bit and do something other than work. So as much as you hear me talk about, samurai, you gotta, work really hard, that's usually the speech to the people who are weak. The people who I have, and there's a lot of them out there, to be honest, and sometimes they need to be shaken up like that. But then there's a contingent which you are part of, which is the people who maybe work too hard. And then the people I've seen like yourself who work to the point at which they break down, those folks wind up breaking down. They're depressed for 2 or 3 days or sick for 2 or 3 days, whatever it is. And so they have massive productivity, then they have a lack of productivity, and in the end it sort of balances out. And so you'd be better off just maybe, pulling down a little bit of the work and just saying, you know what, I put enough time in, I'm going to go get a beer with my mates, and I'm going to get a little buzz on, and then I'm going to get a good night's sleep, and that's better. Because I have this crazy thing, well, I'll just stay up all night. I'll look up, it's 2 or 3 in the morning. And I've been just saying, I'm going to try to get to bed with my wife, and so I drink a glass of port at night sometimes if I can't sleep because my mind is going crazy like an entrepreneur. I don't know if you ever have those nights where you...
Oh, I was up till 3 last night, and I was like, man, I have to be up at 8. What am I doing?
Exactly. And so what I do now is I'm like, you know what? I want to keep my relationship with my wife going. I don't want to have her go to sleep every night alone and I'm up, like a maniac. So I just say, you know what? I'm just going to drink a glass of port, boom, or a dessert wine, because I like both of those things. And it gets me very mellow. and then I start reading 2 or 3 pages of a book or whatever. I start talking to her, and boom, I'm asleep. And I do that a couple nights a week now, where I'm just like, you know what, I'm going to just try to get to bed. So don't overdo it. You're one of those guys who works a little too hard.
Yeah, I'll try. I'm interested to see how it happens when the kid comes along. Well, first one in April, so.
Oh, it all changes.
Yeah.
Everything's different. You are going to become so wildly efficient, and then you're going to wake up every day, and the first thing on your mind is not going to be your startup anymore. The first thing on your mind is going to be you're going to want to go see your kid, and you're going to play with them for the first hour or two every day, and you're not going to think about it as a waste for time. You're going to think about it as the best 2 hours of your day, and you're going to go to work with this great joy of like, wow, I'm working for a reason. I'm making a better life for my family. And you're going to come home and get to see him or her and have a great experience, putting them to bed, and then work for a couple hours after that. You get into a different rhythm. You have to get to bed a little bit earlier, but you see the kid for a couple hours at night, and then you go to bed. I have my wife brings the kid over during the day at work sometimes, or I go out and have lunch with them. So you gotta manage your life, not have your exhaustion manage you. You have to be a little more deliberate, as opposed to like, I got to get every feature. Because you know what? The work you do in those last 2 or 3 hours is crap anyway. Like there's like 7, 8, 9 hours of the day that you're just perfect. And then like everything after that, you're just, refreshing.
I totally agree. I mean, that's why I used to do everything at night. I flipped it round so that I get up in the morning, because my 2 hours I do in the morning before I go to work are my most productive of the day. So it's...
Awesome. Well, continued success with it. You're going to do fine, because trust me, if you had 2 options, one is to be like too hardworking of a guy and having to throttle it back, or being one of these lame people who can't get up for the fight every day and they're just kind of meager and whatever, they're kind of wimpy. You'd rather be the hardworking samurai who's, maybe got to throttle it back a little bit. That's easier to do than trying to be one of these depressed Gen Y kids who can't get out of bed in the morning without taking 7 pills.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, cool. Great. Thanks, Jason.
Keep your chin up.
Cheers. Good luck. Thanks.
Yeah,
Bye.
Get some sleep. Don't stay up all night.
Cheers. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a legitimate question, I think.
Oh, it's the biggest question I think you struggle with.
Yeah.
Or I struggle with, definitely.
It's how hard are you working? You have balance in your life.
And then you totally feel guilty, like, man, I have all this stuff I got to do. Maybe I should be working harder.
Yep.
Maybe I should stay up to 3 a.m. tonight and finish all this stuff.
Yeah.
But the weird thing is, the faster you finish that stuff, the faster it comes back at you.
Yeah, no, the roadmap never ends. There's always something else to do, and you need to stay focused. And there's no reason. It's great to have sprints, like we have sprints here and all that kind of stuff, but you got to realize you're on a sprint. You got to manage it. So here, we're very good at managing it. We're going to sprint for these 3 weeks, and then we're going to make sure that people go home at a reasonable hour for the next month, Yeah. And then we tell them, like, hey, the next sprint's starting this date, so be ready for this to this. But, hey, for this week, make sure you're home, get some rest, whatever. And we take them out to dinner and all that. What's been the hardest part of this whole adventure for you, building this very significant business now?
The hardest part?
Yeah.
I think the hardest part is finding good people.
Hiring.
Yeah. It's all, as you know, it's all about people in a startup.
That's all you have.
I've grown it to 11 people now.
Yeah.
And we're still looking for engineers and a VP biz dev.
Yep.
And I'm hiring for the biz dev right now, and it's just really difficult to find a good person. And then keeping the people you do have and making sure everybody's happy.
Yeah.
I'm more and more realizing that's my job now.
It is. As a CEO and the leader, your job is to find, motivate, and retain.
Yeah, and that's not easy.
It's not easy, and you constantly got to be taking people's temperatures. What do you find is the big retention tool? What keeps people around?
What we're lucky is that if we hire people who like books, they love the site.
So it's the
and
mission.
They love the subject matter.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're very lucky that we're working in kind of a noble field.
Yeah.
Our mission is to get people excited about reading. Like how could you disagree with that? Whereas some of these other startups you go work at and they're...
We're trying to get you to plant virtual crops.
That, for instance. There's all kinds of things that are just not really going to move the needle in making our society a better place.
Right.
And
so if you can find those people...
I always look for people who are passionate about reading, and they don't have to be users of the product, but they have to believe in it.
So if you have 2 people, one of them's a 9 out of 10 in terms of developing in Ruby or whatever you're using, and then one of them's a 7 out of 10. One's passionate about books. One could care less, just wants a paycheck. You're going to go with the 7 and try to build them into a 10?
I mean, it depends on their potential, but probably. Yeah. I had a guy who was a 9 and not so into it, and super smart guy, but he just was a little burned out from other stuff and wasn't that into the product.
I'm assuming hard to manage as well. Like,
great guy,
but not enthusiastic.
Just his head wasn't into it. And despite the fact that he was one of the brightest engineers I worked with. What happened? You fired him,
or he just left? Or?
No, he left.
So that has got to be the most difficult thing facing a manager, is when you have somebody who's doing a good job, but they're not into it.
That's the hard part. And that's why I think passion matters so much, because if people aren't happy in their jobs, why are they going to stay around?
Can you fire somebody for not having passion if they're qualified? I mean, or is that just too taboo for a startup to do? What do you think?
I think that's too taboo.
It is.
But
it's
you
a really
can fire someone for anything you want, right?
Well, of course, we're at at-will country. I'm just saying, you personally, do you feel like if somebody just doesn't have the, the passion, you could say to them, hey, listen, you've done everything I've asked. However, because you don't have passion, it's not the right place for you.
If a person's a producer, you're going to be happy with them.
Yeah.
I'm more saying that people aren't going to be producers if they don't have that passion.
Right.
In my experience.
Yeah. Interesting. I have come to the point in my career now where even if the person is good, but they're not passionate about it, I have a hard time keeping them around.
Yeah.
I just have a hard time working with them. Is probably what I would say. If somebody's just not, because what I find is if you're not passionate, you just don't give that extra 10%.
So let me ask you, you hire some engineer, they come in at 10, they leave at 6, they produce everything you want during those hours, but they're not dedicated beyond that.
Yeah.
Do you keep them?
Well, I think I don't think we have any engineers here who put in 9 to 5, kind of a thing, like just put in the minimum. I think they're all pushing harder than that, and I push harder than that. So I think it would be inequitable for somebody to be a developer here and punch a clock, because they're getting compensated with equity in the company equally in general. And so I don't think that they would last long, probably. I don't know that if that would be the reason I would fire them, like, oh my God, you only did the minimum.
Yeah.
And I understand people have families and stuff like that. I have one myself, so I'm not like a nut about like you have to be sitting in a desk. But I do feel like you have to put in extra effort at a startup. If you're 9 to 5, it's usually a flag that you're just not super into it. So that's what happens, I think, generally. Like if I see somebody leaves every day at 6 o'clock, I just think, I guess they're not so into this. And I prevent that these days when I interview people. Because when I interview people, I say, I put 60, 70, 80 hours a week in, that people in the room here with us do. How do you feel about doing that? What's your average work week like at your last job, at your last two jobs ago? Do you feel like you can put that kind of effort in? Because everybody here is part of a team that's Olympic in caliber. We're an Olympic startup, is what I tell them. And if you want to be an Olympic team, we sacrifice, we train more. We put more effort in. Do you want to be part of that? And, I have people who are just like, no. I scare them. We try to scare them. This is Tyler's technique, who couldn't make it to the program today. But he's got Christmas shopping to do. Hopefully for a good present from me. I'm
sure.
Yeah. You can really avoid it in the interviews, I find. We actually scare people beyond. We're like, yeah, most people put in 6 days a week. Some people put in 7. I mean, it's not true, but I will say that. Like, hey, you might put in 4 6 day a week days. How do you feel about that? And they're like, yeah, I'm not into that, or they just be very pleasant, but then they don't accept the offer, or they they don't come back. So I try to scare them a little bit. But yeah, clock punchers in a startup to me is death. Because once you have 1 or 2, it just breeds this resentment. Like, those guys are getting the same options as me, and they're not here. And if I'm working an extra 20%, their options are going up 20%, but mine are only going up 20%. Why aren't they doing more? Anyway,
it's tough. Yeah, when the culture goes that way. I remember at Tickle, it went that way after we got bought by Monster.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it went from this startup culture where I was there till 10, 11 at night, a lot of nights. And suddenly everybody was leaving at 6.
Yeah.
And it was really weird how within a year, it totally shifted.
Yeah. I'm assuming the founders weren't there, and there wasn't a sense of...
Yeah, this was right when the founders had left.
Yeah. Usually when the founders are there and they see... What I always tell my managers, not that we have a ton of managers, but if they're going to model what you do, Yeah. And my philosophy, when I had a boss who told me, the secret to success is look at what time your boss comes in, what time your boss leaves, come in an hour before him, and stay an hour later. And so when I was told that, I would stay, and my boss worked till 10 o'clock at night some nights in New York, 9 o'clock, And I would just stay there working, and I didn't have anything to do, so I would come up with things to do. I'd be learn. He'd say, "You still working?" I'd be like, "The last two guys in the office." He'd go, and then at one point, maybe 6 months into the job, he said, "Want to get something to eat?" And I was going to lunch with my boss's boss.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he
That's
became a
the way to
lifelong
get
friend,
ahead.
and that's the way I got ahead.
That's exactly what I did at Tickle. There were two of us that stay late, and we talk with the CEO every night.
Yeah, that's the big secret. Anyway, continued success with Goodreads. It's an awesome site. Everybody out there, if you've read a book, which I'm assuming everybody's read a book, or if you want to read a book, try to make yourself a better person. Read a book. Understand the world a little bit better. You hear me give book suggestions all the time. One book, I can recommend a good book. Let's see. Well, Good to Great, obviously, is the great, the Great Management book. Have you read Good to Great?
It's not yet, but it's on my to-read list.
Oh, you have to read Good to Great. I mean, it will change the way you look at startups. Awesome. And our question of the week is actually, what are you reading? So put that on the This Weekend site, thisweekend.com/startups. Go answer the question. Make Rob happy because he's trying to do this whole, this question of the week, and we're going to give you feedback on it on the next show.
Put it on Goodreads too. And
put it on Goodreads. Just go there, it takes 10 seconds, and you'll automatically find your Facebook and Twitter friends, which was great for me because now I'm getting a ton of book suggestions with 2 clicks. I came in 2 clicks, all of a sudden I got all these great book suggestions. You find some good zombie books. And what was the other one? Survival Club. This is another good book where this New York Times.
I don't even know this one.
The Survivors Club. I'm going to go see if it's on Goodreads here. Hold on a second. The Survivors Club. Or it's something like that. The Survivors Club. I can't remember the name of it.
Is it fiction?
Yeah, it's it's The Survivors Club is the name of it. No, it's a New York Times author, and there it is, The Survivors Club. No, that's not him. It's nonfiction. Here we go. The Science That Could Save Your Life. This is a great book. Pull it up on my screen if you don't mind. And look, you've got 3.74. 719, 254 reviews. Wow, I did not realize you reached this level of scale.
Yeah, for most titles, we have 10x the number of reviews Amazon does.
That is extraordinary. And those are all astroturfed. There's a lot of astroturfing going on Amazon. It's unbelievable. Astroturfing is when you put up a fake review for people who don't know.
Half the reviews on Amazon are the publicist or the author's friends.
It's unbelievable. And here you see the ratings details, 719 ratings, 254. A great book. And this guy discusses how and why people survive some of the most devastating, unbelievable injuries. Though humans are some of the most delicate of God's creatures, we are also amazingly tough and resilient, with an incredible capacity to heal. Sherwood interviewed hundreds of survivors of all kinds, from car and plane crash survivors to Holocaust survivors to POWs and everything in between. The list includes men, women, the old and young, and read more of this great review on Goodreads. That is my pick of the week for Goodreads. And I've really got a lot out of the book because it's very inspiring and teaches a lot about resilience. Continued success, Otis.
Thank you, Jason.
And thank you to .co, and thank you to SendGrid for supporting the program. I hope everybody has a great Christmas, and we'll see you in the new year. Cheers.
That's what it's all about, man. They said money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you. Yeah. Money is the root of all evil. What? Funny how it feeds my people. Yeah. We ain't gonna live like equals until we get the money, spend the money, and defeat you.